Today, we are going to be talking about addiction and the themes of addiction that show up in the soul contract. Now, big, massive caveat is that I'm not speaking from any medical or professional viewpoint. I'm just looking at understanding addiction on the soul contract level and a little bit on the emotional level as well, because all of us are a little bit addicted to something or addicted to many things. When we talk about addiction, it's not always the big ones. Oh, I'm addicted to drugs and alcohol and all this stuff happened in my life. We can be addicted on very subtle, small ways to things in our life, whether it's chocolate or work, or maybe we're addicted to Instagram or social media. I know a lot of us are addicted to that. So I think this is going to be relevant for everyone on some level, but hopefully really, really relevant to people who have actually struggled with an addiction in their lives. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Antonia and I love to dive into soul contracts so you can gain a deeper understanding and awareness of the patterns and challenges and energies flowing through your life in order to navigate through them more gracefully and live a more empowered life where you're more in command of who you are rather than being unconsciously driven by the emotional patterns underneath you. So a lot of the work I do is about understanding yourself with the soul contracts and then healing and bringing awareness to and releasing all the deep emotional programming that's connected to them. And that is my joy, and that is why I'm here sharing this with you. And I've dived into a lot of themes around the soul contracts, such as intensity, boundaries, love, shame. That's a really big one. All the different energies around that can show up in a soul contract. But today is all about addiction. Now, before I set up my video to do this, I decided to double check and look at a few charts of some people who have now died, but who did have famously had addiction problems. And I know one of them I was going to look at was Amy Winehouse. I also looked at Kurt Cobain and I looked at Ernest Hemingway. These are three people who had quite big problems. And I do that very lightly because I don't tend to look at someone's soul contract unless they've given me their explicit permission. So I would never do that to someone who's alive, but for someone who's already dead, their soul contract is complete. And I don't know where they are now, but it seems in integrity to bring this up, especially if it could help someone who is battling their own issues. So I'm going to share those. So there are three numbers that are really, really connected to the energy of addiction in the soul contract. And these are 12 threes, 9s, and 6s. Now, if you have them in your chart, does not mean you're an addict. Does not mean you're going to have addiction issues. And it does not mean that it could happen or it will happen. No way, Jose, because everyone's human experience is vastly different. Someone can have the exact same soul contract as someone else, but their life experience is vastly different because the themes are playing out in very different ways. Now, the 6s, 9s, and 12 threes show up as a threesome, but they can often be two numbers as well. So, for example, Amy Winehouse in her soul contract had karmic 6s, karmic 12 threes, and karmic 9s. And what that means is the karmic energy sits in the karma, the goals, or the soul destiny. It's the more challenging energy. Kurt Cobain had also karmic 12 threes, karmic 6s, and karmic 9s, although maybe you'll see, I can't remember where exactly they were in his chart. And Ernest Hemingway also had, I think he just had karmic 9s and karmic 6s. I didn't see a 12-3 in his soul contract unless it's in his common name. And I myself have karmic 12 threes and 9s, but I don't have those 6s. But I know lots of people, I've done a lot of readings, people with these numbers. Now, I find that there's a particular reason why these energies show up and why addiction shows up. The first one is 9s. 9s are about disempowerment and then coming into this lifetime to empower yourself. What that means is if you have 9s in a very karmic position in your chart, maybe your physical karma, your spiritual karma, your soul destiny, maybe your goals, you may have experienced disempowerment in your life, and it could be very severe, ranging from physical, emotional abuse to less severe, but still equally as disempowering. And so nines are on a journey to step back into their power. And this is very painful. It's a very, very painful thing to go through the abuse and the disempowerment. And it's a very brave and courageous thing to then go back into it as an adult and start to unpick it and start to let that wound heal again. So often we become addicted to something because it is a way to numb, hide, and run away from a deeper feeling that we don't want to touch. And so we get into this brain loop. Oh, there's so much about the biochemistry with addiction, but this brain loop of doing this thing that gives us that escape, that peace, that numbing. And then it becomes our default. We do it more and more. And we have to do it more in order to get the same amount that we got before. And there's so many brilliant people who write about this that can't even claim to know how addictions work on that biochemical level. But if you have severe trauma and you do not want to look into it and you want to hide from it and run away from it, addiction is a way that we do this. It's a way that we do this because it's too painful. And if you have 8s or 3s in your soul contract, it's going to feel extra challenging because the 8s want to stay in the head and analyze. They don't want to feel through the body, and the 3s want to hide away. And this is why the 12 3s are also in that little addiction, 12 3s, 6s and 9s, because the 12 3s are all about understanding, recognizing and embodying your true value and your worth. 3s are on a journey to self-worth. And so when we do not feel worthy, again, we can do very, very deeply self-sabotaging behaviors in order not to feel that unworthiness. And the 12 3s are very expansive and they want to do everything, and they can become so imbalanced. I have 2 12 3s in my chart, and I find it so hard to slow down. I find it so hard to come into balance between work and play, spiritual and physical, looking after my mind, but also looking after my body. And so in an addiction, the 12 3s, it's almost like an out of control, galloping runaway horse. This is what this energy can be like. It's very intense. And so when you add that into a mix with the escaping and the running away from the trauma and the disempowerment and the abuse, it is like, let me just get into something different. Let me run away from that. Let me expand into that. Let me get out of balance with something different. And it's a really strong energy, as I said. And the way the 6s play into this, the 6s and the 9s I often see as a pair. Well, they are a pair. They're linked to your kidneys, your right and left kidney. That's the organ that is related to this energy in the soul contract, the 6 and the 9, left and right kidney. And the 6s can get angry, and they can get angry because they haven't properly felt the disempowerment of the 9s. Now, 6s are highly creative, highly connected to source, but they can get quite frustrated and angry when they cannot connect to that intuitive channel. And so they will get quite isolated and they will get quite hooked into things. Like, it's a very focused mindset. They can be really, really focused and like really too into something, or they can be really scattered and overwhelmed and try and do a million different things. So the 6 energy is really a mix of both. And ultimately it's about becoming focused and creative and connecting to source and allowing that to create through you, and you make it manifest. Obviously I'm going into the real highs and lows of each of these numbers. There are really amazing aspects to having 6, 9 and 12 3 energy in your chart. I mean, truly amazing. 9s are just powerhouses completely, so spiritual and so creative. Same with the 6s. We call them the architects of the world because they create things that we have around us. And the 12 3s become teachers because they have a lot of experience. They're coming into their worthiness. They come out of hiding. They share their knowledge with the world. And then other people benefit from that through how they teach. So having these numbers in your chart, as I said earlier, is not a warning. It's not a prediction. It is just, this is how addiction can show up in the energies in the soul contract. And the key to working through this is to face into the trauma and disempowerment of the 9s Allow yourself to create and focus on one thing at a time and not become isolated as you do this with the sixes, and to healthily express your anger. And the 12 threes are here to slow down. They're here to feel, sit, slow down, and feel the self worth that is driving their busyness and expansion, and tune that down and tune up the balance and the coming back into harmony with all the different versions of themselves so they can expand in a very healthy, balanced way. So that is my very brief summary of addiction and the soul contract. And it is so interesting that when I look at people who have died, who have had very serious addictions, they're famous for them, these numbers always show up. So there's some proof in the pudding there. And if you have any thoughts, feedback, questions, please do let me know. As I said, I'm no expert on addiction, but this is the energy that tends to come through in the soul contract when this is playing out. But there's always a very, very deep tapestry that is woven through each person's soul contract. It's never simple, it's never formulaic, it's never you have that number, that means you have that experience. No way, it's so much more intricate than that. But I welcome your feedback, your thoughts, and until next time, wish you a very beautiful rest of your day.